The banks of the River Thames are a treasure trove, holding many secrets and surprises nestled deep in the mud and the clay, of much-loved items dropped over hundreds of years, and some almost perfectly preserved. In the 18th and 19th centuries, London's very poorest spent their days wading in the treacherous banks, finding whatever scraps they could lay their hands on and selling them on. Known as mudlarks, these were mainly children aged between 8 and 14, but could be anyone from young children up to the very elderly. What they had in common was that they were very poor and very desperate. For them, mudlarking was a means of survival. With items they retrieved coal, metal, scraps, ropes, or lost coins sold for meager earnings. It was a perilous job. The mud was dangerous and the tides changed fast. Henry Mayhew, a social commentator, describes the mudlarks in the mid-19th century as compelled from utter destitution to seek for the means of appeasing their hunger in the mud of the river. If we were able to return to Victorian London and head down the banks of the Thames at low tide, we would observe silent human figures aged from childhood upwards, bent over, wading, sometimes waist-high, in the wet mud, according to Stowell Heard. Their ragged clothes and limbs would be coated in a foul-smelling mud, which included all manner of detritus. But it was within the mud and sewers that they searched for the modest riches that had been thrown away, dropped or lost overboard of the vessels moored in the Thames. These bent, bedraggled figures of humanity were the mudlarks, scavengers in London's river and sewers, who scratched a living by selling the articles they found. The Thames during Victorian London was particularly polluted. A very difficult time was July and August 1858, where the summer heat brought the pollution issues to a boiling point. The Silent Highwayman of 1858 depicts death rowing down on the Thames, claiming the lives of victims who had not paid to have the river cleaned up. Henry Mayhew, in his account of London labour and London poor in 1861, shares a narrative from a mudlark found near Millwall along the river. The mudlark was published in a chapter entitled Felonies on the River Thames. Alongside smugglers and pirates, they were often depicted as thieves. Mudlarks lived on the margins of the law and sometimes stepped outside of it. Mayhew recorded that sometimes the younger and bolder mudlarks venture on sweeping some empty coal barge, and one little fellow whom I spoke had been caught in the act of doing so, had to undergo the offence of 7 days' imprisonment in the House of Correction. This, he said, he liked much better than mudlarking, for whilst he stayed there he wore a coat and shoes and stockings, though he had never had much over to eat. He certainly was never afraid of going to bed without anything at all, as he often had to do when at liberty. In another account, Mayhew called over an Irish boy about 13 years old, dressed in a brown coat and vest, dirty, greasy canvas trousers, roughly patched, striped shirt with the collar folded down, and a cap with a peak. He shares this story. About 2 years ago, I left school and commenced work as a mudlark on the river in the neighbourhood of Millwall, picking up pieces of coal and iron and copper and bits of canvas on the bed of the river or of wood floating on the surface. When the bargemen have coals to be carried from their barge to the shore, pieces drop in the river among the mud, which we pick up. Sometimes we get as many coals on the barge to sell. We generally have a bag or a basket to put articles we gather into. I sometimes have got so much at one time that I filled my basket twice before the tide went back. I sell the coals to poor people in the neighbourhood. We often find among the mud in the bed of river pieces of iron, washers and other articles cast away or dropped in the iron yards in building ships and barges. We get these in the neighbourhoods of Limehouse, where they build boats and vessels. I generally gather pieces of iron every day, which sells at £0.25, and often make £1 or £2 daily. At other times, only a farthing. Pieces of ropes are occasionally dropped or thrown overboard from the ships or barges, and are found embedded in the mud. I generally rise in the morning around 6 o'clock and go down to the riverside. In the winter time, we don't work so many hours as in the summer. Yet in winter, we are generally more successful than in the long days of summer. There are generally 13 or 14 mudlarks about Limehouse in the summer and about 6 boys steadily there in the winter who are strong and hardy and well able to endure the cold. Some mudlarks are orphan boys and have no home. In the summertime, they often sleep in the barges or in sheds or stables or cow houses with their clothes on. Some of them have not a shirt, others have a tattered shirt which is never washed, and they have no father nor mother nor friend to care for them. Mudlarks generally have a pound of bread for breakfast and a pint of beer when they can afford it. They don't go to coffee shops, not being allowed in, as they are apt to steal a man's grub. I never saw any of them take supper. The boys who are out at night lie down to sleep when it's dark and rise as early as daylight. When they have money, they take a bed in a low lodging house. I take what I can get as well as the rest when I get an opportunity. the Thames police often come upon us and carry off our bags and baskets with the contents. We are generally good swimmers. When a bargeman gets a hold of them in the barge of the river, they are often seized by police in the middle of the river and thrown overboard, where they swim to the shore. I've been chased twice by police gangs. I've been in the habit of stealing pieces of rope, lumps of coal, and other articles for the last 2 years. But my parents don't know of this. I've never been tried by any police court for any felony. It's my intention to go to sea, as my brothers have done, so soon I can find a captain to take me on board his ship. Amazingly, in 2025, London Docklands Museum is going to be hosting a London Lost Treasures exhibition, exploring what can be found in the Thames mud, the stories of generations of people who have visited the city or called it home. Amongst the treasures are a Tudor knitted hat, a Viking dagger, and lots of clay pipes. Being the stage for human activity over 2,000 years, other common finds include Roman artefacts such as coins, potteries and tiles, which are frequently uncovered, hinting at the bustling Roman settlement of Londyminium, which was established in AD 43. Medieval relics such as pins, buckles and fragments of pottery, which offer a glimpse into medieval London's fashion and domestic life. Tudor and Stuart era items, most commonly clay pipes, which were simple smoking pipes, often broken and discarded, and items from the Victorian industrial era, such as buttons, tools, and pieces of glass, frequently emerging from the mud. Each article serves as a tangible connection to the people who lived, worked, and walked the streets of London across the centuries. And you too can become a mudlark. If you apply for a permit, the world is your oyster. And that's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, give us a like and please subscribe for more. I bring out new episodes every Tuesday. And thanks for watching and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.